The story begins with our protagonist awakening in complete darkness. Disoriented, he wonders where he is and whether it is still night, searching for some way to turn on the light. However, he finds nothing. Suddenly, a crack appears in the void. It opens and reveals a vast forest. Confused, the protagonist wonders what he is doing there and why he cannot move. At that moment, his status window becomes visible, and he discovers that he is a dragon egg. A voice informs him that his status window has been opened, allowing him to see all his current statistics with numerical values for easier understanding. The voice adds that explanations of his statistics and items are provided by the Divine Voice skill, and that it can also notify him whenever his stats change. The protagonist asks if this is a game, but the voice replies that it cannot provide explanations of that nature at level 1. He then asks who the voice is. Once again, the voice says it cannot provide such explanations. Growing tired of the response, the protagonist asks who she is and where he is, but the voice repeats the same thing. He gets angry and shouts for her to stop saying that, but by accident ends up falling from the tree. When he hits the ground, the voice informs him that he has obtained the fall resistance skill and the title Clumsy. The protagonist feels offended by this but has no time to think as he begins rolling toward a lake. Barely managing to save himself, he looks at his reflection and realizes that he is definitely an egg. Confused, he exclaims that nothing makes sense and that he cannot understand what is happening. Once again, the system explains everything. He is a dragon egg, an F-rank monster, a descendant of a dragon, and if his shell breaks, he will die. In addition, he is imposing and has low intelligence due to an underdeveloped brain, so rolling is all he can do. The protagonist tries to argue, but the system continues speaking and says that although he may become a fearsome dragon over time, the egg itself is considered a gourmet delicacy. After all, it is common practice among adventurers to destroy any dragon egg they find. However, they consider it dangerous to approach if the mother dragon is nearby. This leaves the protagonist even more confused, but at that moment he begins rolling downhill. While this happens, the system informs him that his rolling skill has increased from level 1 to level 2. Immediately, the protagonist checks the newly acquired function and discovers that he can now steer and turn. Thus, he speeds down the path, but by accident falls from a great height. Once again, the system informs him that fall resistance and clumsy have leveled up. Seeing that he now has only 3 HP left, he decides to rest. Hours pass, and at night he comments on how nice it feels to rest. He recovers his HP, that is, his health points. Without further delay, he decides to move again. Meanwhile, he notes how strange everything is, because although he is now an egg, he will eventually have to hatch, meaning he will become a dragon. Of course, he has no idea how to reach that point. He assumes it is like an RPG, where he needs to gain experience to level up and then evolve or something like that. Which also means he will have to fight enemies, something he does not want to do. After all, he is just an egg. At that moment, he sees something behind a tree, approaches it, and realizes it is an insect. He checks its stats and discovers it is a dark worm with the title Egg Eater. The creature notices the protagonist and, as its title suggests, crawls toward him to devour him. Thus, a chase begins. The protagonist looks for a way to defeat it. He thinks about attacking, but when he sees that the worm has more HP than he does, he knows that a direct collision would kill him. Spotting a cliff, he gets an idea. He heads there, and when the worm lunges to eat him, the protagonist dodges and, with a jump, pushes it into the abyss. Resting on top of the worm, he wonders if he has won, but at that moment the creature stands back up. The egg begs it to surrender, and the worm accepts, falling dead shortly after. The protagonist wonders if it is truly dead since he sees no more movement. The system informs him that he has gained 12 experience points. In addition, the walking egg title grants another 12 bonus points. The protagonist realizes that this really does work like a game, and the system announces that he has leveled up from level 1 to level 5, reaching the maximum level for evolution. Before evolving, the system shows him the ways he can grow, as a baby dragon or as a dragonette. Since he does not know which to choose, the system describes the dragonette. It is a small dragon species, still larger than a bear, and possesses a fire breath. The baby dragon, on the other hand, has very tender meat and is quite weak. It has short claws and fangs, but great potential, with multiple possible evolutions, although most end up being hunted by adventurers or monsters. The baby dragon option depresses the protagonist, and he prefers the dragonette for being more balanced. At that moment, he feels hands touching him and hears a voice repeating that he must grow stronger, saying that only one path lies before him, the path to the top, and that great expectations rest upon him. The protagonist wonders if this is a divine voice. The system informs him that divine voice has increased from level 1 to level 2. He assumes the voice appeared because he mentioned the balanced dragonette. Keeping in mind that only one path will lead him to the top, he thinks that the baby dragon has more potential and can evolve into many types of dragons, while the dragonette has fewer options and may stagnate. Thus, after careful consideration, he confidently chooses the baby dragon. We then see his shell crack, from which legs and a tail emerge. The system comments that thanks to his title, Son of the Dragon King, Warm, resistances below level 5 are strengthened. In addition, he obtains the skills Dragon Scales, Baby Breath, Hiss, and Bite, almost like a Digimon. His stats increase drastically, but his HP and MP are still not full. This means that even after evolving, he needs to rest. Before that, he thinks about thanking the caterpillar, but he feels hungry, and for some reason, it looks appetizing. The protagonist understands that this is due to his dragon instinct, and that his body urges him to eat it, to recover and be able to fight. At that moment, the divine voice once again tells him to grow stronger, and with no other choice, he eats the caterpillar, roaring in disgust at the horrible taste. The next day, the dragon wakes up and looks at his reflection in the lake. Calmer now, he understands that he has reincarnated into another world, and is now some kind of baby dragon. Moreover, the world seems to function like an RPG. He can gain experience, level up, and evolve. However, for some reason, he does not remember who he was in his past life. He knows he was human, but he does not remember what he looked like, what he did, or even whether he was a man or a woman. Behind him, he hears more creatures, like the ones from the previous day, and begins hunting them, gaining more experience and going from level 1 to 3. At this point, the dragon decides to test Baby Breath, breathing fire and devouring the insects, managing to go from level 5 to 7. After so much attacking, he gains the title Striker and the skill Dragon Fist, making an enemy explode with a single punch and jumping from level 14 to 15. After finishing, the dragon says that he will soon reach the so-called summit. However, hunger returns, and he can only eat the same thing as before. Just thinking about it makes him nauseous until he sees some mushrooms. Out of curiosity, he tastes them and roars again. After some time, we see him drinking water, as the mushrooms were poisonous and made him vomit everything. Having learned his lesson, the system announces that he has obtained the poison-resistant skill and that Clumsy has leveled up again. He then ventures deeper into the forest in search of something to eat that is not insects. Then he sees a gray wolf. After checking that its stats are lower than his, he decides to hunt it. First, he uses Dragon Breath and finishes the fight with a Dragon Strike. Thus, we see the wolf roasted. The protagonist approaches and notices that the beast gives off a barbecue-like smell. Excited, he decides to roast it a bit more. In doing so, he obtains grilled meat, tastes it, and confirms that it is delicious. In the afternoon, he hunts another wolf and levels up. While cooking, he comments that it seems he will be able to evolve again upon reaching level 25, needing only 5 more levels. Just when he thinks he is already adapting to his lifestyle as a dragon, he hears somewhat distorted voices. The dragon recognizes them as human voices and, quite excited, goes to investigate. Behind a tree, he discovers that they are adventurers. Thrilled, he thinks about introducing himself, but upon remembering that he is a dragon, he hesitates. Still, he recalls that he is adorable, so he does not believe they would do anything to him. Before anything else, he checks their stats and realizes that they are not stronger than him, although they still have a numerical advantage. After a brief internal debate, he finally decides to introduce himself. He comes out from behind a bush saying that he is a good little dragon. He starts dancing while asking what they think and whether they feel like hugging him. The group leader tells the girl to step back, because in his eyes the protagonist is an evil dragon. He draws his sword and, using a skill, inflicts a wound on the dragon's chest. The protagonist falls to the ground, feeling pain. Next, the mage casts a spell that paralyzes him. The dragon feels his sensation disappear, and then the system informs him that he has obtained the magic resistance skill. Our protagonist tries to flee, but the spell prevents him. He wonders whether they see him as an enemy or perhaps as food. Calling himself an idiot, he questions how he ever convinced himself that a dragon could befriend humans, remembering everything he went through to hatch from that egg and evolve. He exclaims that this sucks, that he does not want to die, and with his last strength in tears, begs them to help him. The woman steps in front of him and asks the adventurer to wait. The dragon sees that she is trying to protect him, and when he closes his eyes, he feels a warm hand, realizing that the girl is using her magic to heal him. Although he cannot hear her very well, he understands that she asked if he is okay. He does not know why she is helping a dragon, but he feels grateful. The other adventurers do not understand her either, and simply go on their way. The dragon checks the girl's stats and sees that her name is Miriam Miliania, a human of the Earth attribute. Her HP is fine, but because she healed him, she has almost no MP left, and yet she did it to save him. Little by little, the dragon feels the paralysis fade. Perhaps Miriam will leave when she realizes he is fine, but for now he decides to stay quiet a bit longer. Because of this, the system informs him that he has obtained the title Liar. Suddenly, when Miriam speaks to him, he gains the human language skill. The dragon understands that the more this skill levels up, the better he will be able to understand her, and he eagerly awaits learning it properly. However, he hears a roar and the screams of people. The entire environment turns red and hostile. The dragon knows this is something bad, clearly a very powerful enemy, and certainly the other humans must have died. Miriam is about to go after her companions, but the dragon stops her, telling her not to go, because she will not be able to do anything. Moreover, she has no more magic power, and will not be able to use healing spells on them. Miriam knows this very well, but still decides to go. The dragon tries to follow her, but he is still suffering from paralysis, hitting his own leg to make it move, because Miriam will not be able to defeat whatever has appeared. Even so, if the dragon joins the adventurers, he might be able to do something. Thus, we see him running as fast as possible to find Miriam, but he ends up face-to-face with a C-rank rock dragonette with 197 HP, while he himself has only 38 out of 72. Putting that aside, he looks for Miriam and sees her trapped beneath the rock dragonette. However, he makes too much noise and ends up being noticed by the creature. The dragonette turns around and slowly approaches, letting out a roar that makes our protagonist fall to the ground, staring up at it helplessly, unable to do anything against it. But anyway, if you made it this far, comment the word dragon, so I know you reached the end. The rank C rock dragon tries to stomp on him with all its might, but the protagonist uses all his energy to dodge. Because he used too much force when jumping away, the protagonist can barely stand, and then realizes his own mistake. He regrets not having joined Miria's group, as he believes that if the four of them had worked together, they might have had a chance against that beast. But now being completely alone, he's not even sure if he'll be able to get out of that place alive, let alone defeat the rock dragon. Since he's far below the required level, every cell in his body screams for him to hide. And when the rock dragon lets out a deafening roar, he is finally overcome by fear and hides in a bush, trembling. Peeking out, he sees that the unconscious Miria has only 6 hit points left. Even so, the protagonist feels relieved because she's still alive. The rock dragon, unable to see the protagonist anymore, goes back to attacking Miria, leaving him wondering what he should do now. If he doesn't save her, she'll probably be eaten alive by the monster. So despite his fear, he steps out of the bush. But at that moment, the mysterious hand of the divine voice stops him from moving. He then hears the divine voice again, which keeps begging him to run away, claiming that otherwise he'll be roasted. But he doesn't care. He was once human, and as a human, he can't abandon an innocent person. So he lets out a loud roar to drive away his fear and charges straight at the rock dragon. The monster tries to trample him, but as he dodges, the system rewards him with the title King of Evasion. He notices that the old man, who had joined Miria's group, has 0 HP, and, as unfortunate as it is, there's still another person alive. So, he desperately tries to save both Miria and the other member. He provokes the rock dragon, hitting it several times and making the monster chase after him. But this ends up being a mistake, as the creature uses an ability called Tremor, which hits him even though he's outside the monster's direct reach. When the dragon gets close and is about to use the bite ability, the protagonist reacts cleverly, shoving a fireball into the creature's mouth. However, the rock dragon survives and immediately enters a recovery state to restore its HP. Meanwhile, the protagonist puts Miria on his back and runs away, leaving the other companion behind, as he doesn't have the time or strength to save him. After taking Miria to a safe place, the protagonist notices that her HP has dropped again, going from 6 to just 3, which makes him wonder if this is due to blood loss. Her status indicates that she is bleeding and conscious. He then tries to use the recovery magic Rest, but it doesn't work. Maybe because it's a self-healing ability. So he decides to focus on taking the girl back to her people, believing that only humans will be able to save her life. However, he doesn't know which path she and her group took. So he follows the faint scent of humans and carries Miria out of the forest. On the way, a pack of gray wolves is attracted by Miria's scent. As a result, they start chasing the protagonist. He fights the beasts with all his strength to protect Miria, and, by the end of the day, he has no energy left. Even so, he keeps pushing himself and manages to bring her to a village. Since there's no one in sight, he starts roaring loudly, hoping to attract attention. Some humans appear, but they obviously believe the protagonist is a beast trying to harm Miria. Since there's no way for them to communicate, the humans start attacking him. Realizing that, as a dragon, he would never be able to make them believe he's not dangerous, he sets Miria down and flees, receiving a new title from the system, Little Hero. A few days later, Miria regains consciousness after receiving proper treatment and realizes she's at Marielle's house. Marielle explains that she had to use a powerful white magic to save her life, and Miria thanks her. What really bothers her is not knowing who brought her back to the village, so she asks Marielle if it was the other 2 members of the group, the old Grants, or Da. However, Marielle reveals that the lifeless body of Grants was found by the villagers the day before, in the forest. Visibly shaken, Marielle calls Da a fool for provoking a rock dragon. As for Da, She explains that his body still hasn't been found, but she believes he was devoured by another monster. Realizing she was the only survivor, Miria feels extremely guilty and regrets not stopping Da from challenging the rock dragon. She breaks down in tears and Marielle tries to comfort her, saying it wasn't her fault, but it doesn't help at all. All Miria can remember is how brave Da was. She recalls the day she saw him truly lose his temper for the first time. That day, Da got into an argument with some boys from the village. The fight started because the boys said Da would never be able to fight and defeat a rock dragon. The boy seemed so confident because he knew that the last time Da had encountered a rock dragon, he had lost his nerve and run away. Da insisted that was in the past, and that if he now had a reason to fight a rock dragon, he would definitely win. The boys were absolutely certain that he wouldn't be able to win. Thus, Da's pride led him to accept an impossible task. He knew how impossible it was, which is why he needed a healer by his side. As a result, he sought out Miria to accompany him. When he told her what the mission would be, Miria asked why he didn't ask someone much stronger than her, like Marielle, to go in her place. Da realized that she didn't trust him enough, so he said that he had spoken with Marielle, and that it was Marielle herself who told him she had a prior commitment, which is why he should ask Miria for help. Miria's heart was full of doubts. She knew how strong the rock dragons were, and reminded Da that Marielle had already told her that, under no circumstances, should she approach a rock dragon. So why would Marielle give permission for something like that? Da tried harder to convince her. He even claimed that Grants was present when Marielle gave the permission. And Grants confirmed this as well. He emotionally blackmailed her, saying that she knew how strong the rock dragons were, and that if she didn't go with them, they would die. Reluctantly, Miria agreed to go with them, on the condition that if the situation became difficult, they would retreat immediately. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to save any of them. Marielle tries to encourage her, saying she did nothing wrong, reminding her that it was only Dar's pride that killed him and nothing else. Marielle also points out that, despite having encountered a rock dragon, Miria managed to return home alive. This shocks Miria, because she knows for certain that she didn't come back alone. She asks Marielle how she managed to return to the village, and Marielle explains that the men who found her said they saw her being attacked by a monster on the outskirts of the city. Miria remembers that she fainted when she was attacked by the rock dragon, so everything seems confusing in her mind. Noticing her confusion, Marielle says that humans sometimes suffer memory loss after traumatic encounters, so that might be what's happening to her. Miria recalls the scene of seeing a small dragon fighting in front of her, so she starts to wonder if that was the dragon that brought her back home. She asks Marielle for a description of the dragon, but Marielle wasn't there when the little dragon brought her, so she doesn't have much to say. Even so, Miria remains thoughtful about the whole situation. Meanwhile, the little dragon wakes up after a long rest. He notices that his wounds have already healed, since he knows that rest would certainly regenerate him. He thinks about Miria and wonders if she is okay now too. He reflects on everything that has happened in the past few days, ever since he used his fire against the rock dragon and thought it would work, only to discover that the rock dragon has the power to restore its HP immediately after being attacked. This only strengthens his determination to become stronger at any cost, which means he needs to evolve. To do that, he needs to reach level 25. With this goal in mind, he captures a worm and hangs it from a tree to attract other worms that would come to rescue it, and then he would kill them. He calls this deceptive technique calling allies, and by using it, he receives the title of malefactor. He knows that what he's doing is wrong, but he needs to do it for now. Maybe after he evolves, he won't act this way anymore. He kills all the worms that show up to confront him and, in a short time, reaches level 25, finally becoming eligible to evolve. He asks to see the evolution tree and receives 5 options. They are Mini Dragon, Mini Angel Dragon, Child Dragon, Marble Child Dragon, and Young Plague Dragon. He starts to wonder what exactly is the difference between a mini dragon, a small dragon, and a baby dragon. The divine voice helps him clarify these doubts. The mini dragon has a small stature like the baby dragon, but its individual growth is slow and it has limited evolution options. However, many of its future evolutions have great potential. He doesn't like the idea of slow growth, so that doesn't impress him. The mini angel dragon has a protective spirit and vows to live for the sake of others. As a result, it can use white magic, but it doesn't fight. Once again, this doesn't interest him, since he likes to fight. He even considers white magic since he saw Miria use it, but that's not enough of an incentive to decide. The child dragon, on the other hand, is the next evolution after the baby dragon, with improved abilities. The marble child dragon is a dragon that has undergone a mutation and also possesses magical aptitude. The last one is the young plague dragon, the first stage of an evil dragon that spreads disasters. The idea of spreading calamities doesn't appeal to the protagonist at all, so he immediately rejects this option. However, the system keeps listing this dragon's characteristics, including the fact that it has high intelligence and can use human transformation. He shouts that he doesn't want to become evil, but the idea of being able to transform into a human is just too tempting to ignore. Which of these dragons will he evolve into? He thinks about going to the village and making friends, but that would mean spreading the plague. Confused, he shouts, not knowing which evolution path to choose. Which do you think is the right choice for him? Leave your opinion in the comments.